Hello everyone, my name's Rob King, and I'm going to go over how to begin studying for the TOEFL exam. The first one is I really want students to understand the test is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I've seen on numerous occasions when I've given students their first practice test, they're super excited to be taking the test. They open it, they stick their nose into the test, and they try to read every single word in the reading, or they try to listen to every single word and not miss anything on the listening section. If students do this, they are going to burn out during the test, and they're treating the test as a sprint and not a marathon. I think it's very important to really practice that time management, so that way there, when you're getting towards the end of the test, you're still able to answer those questions to the best of your ability. My second point that I always like talking about is keep it simple, or KISS. And whenever I teach the TOEFL class, whenever I teach a TOEFL class, students really laugh at this because I'll say this 5 or 6 times every single class. And I do treat TOEFL very different than other English classes that I teach. Because in other English classes, I do want students to be branching out, trying new things with their English skills. But in a TOEFL class, I want students to keep it simple. I don't want them to do too much in the writing or do too much in the speaking section of the test. What I want students to do is I want them to come up with a writing template that they're going to use over and over and over again and really master one way of doing it. Same thing with the speaking. They're going to do the same template over and over again. That way there, once when the test starts, they don't have to worry about how they're going to write it or how they're going to be able to speak it. They can go straight into highlighting the key points that they want to make sure that they're getting across while they're taking this test. My third point that I always like going over is confusion is okay. I don't care if a student would study for the test for 3 years. They're still not going to know everything that's on the test. They're not going to know every single vocabulary words that's going to be on the test. They're not going to know all of the science terms or science philosophies on the test. And that is okay. I've taught TOEFL for 7 years. I've taken many practice tests. I've taught it. There are still many words that come up on the TOEFL that I don't even know. And that's okay. And I want my students to realize that's okay as well. There's ways to get to the correct answer if you understand how the test works. So, it's okay not to understand everything. Don't panic if you come to new words or new concepts that you don't know. My fourth point that I like going over is just practice, practice, and practice. I think it's really important to practice many times. That way there you've seen all the different types of questions that the TOEFL can answer. You've learned ways to eliminate the obviously wrong answers to some of the questions that they're asking. You are learning how to manage your time for 3 hours to make sure when you do get to the end of the test, you're able to answer those questions to the best of your ability and you're not guessing on them. So it is really important for a student to take many practice tests, go over those answers, make sure that they understand the answers. Because there's only a certain number of types of questions that are going to answer. So the more you practice, the more you're familiar with those questions, the better the student's going to do. My fifth point, learning TOEFL vocabulary words. So I've seen books and TOEFL resources where they'll have 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 TOEFL words that students can learn. And I've had students buy those books and every day they're trying to memorize 50 words. I think that is a really bad idea for students to do. First, it's not fun at all just sitting down learning 50 academic words every day. And second, if you're doing that, you're not really comprehending those words either. You are going to forget them very quickly. What I always recommend a student do is find out when they're going to take the test, and 6 months before that date, just start studying TOEFL vocabulary words. And if a student learns 3 words a day and make sure they have those words memorized for a very long time, and they do that every single day, in a week that's 21 words, in 6 months that's more than enough words that a student's going to need to know to be very successful on the TOEFL exam. And the last point that I really like emphasizing with my students is note-taking. Note-taking, I always believe it's a language in itself. And really the only person that needs to understand your note-taking skills or your note-taking language is the student themselves. It doesn't matter if the teacher understands the notes, it doesn't matter if another class member understands the notes. Those notes are only for that student to be able to answer those questions and get the right answer. So there's a lot of things a student can do to make sure that they have good note-taking skills. First, you cannot write everything down. There's just not enough time. If you attempt to do that, you're going to miss a lot of very important points that you're going to need to know to be able to answer the questions. Second, use abbreviations, use stars, underline things, use arrows to connect ideas. If you do all of these things, you're saving yourself a lot of time and you're not missing key points that you need to know. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck on the TOEFL exam.